people grab that. And when you create a unique personality and a persona, you're giving your bot that extra edge to beat out the 100 other bots in your category who feel more generic.
Welcome to the Chatbot Podcast, the place where we talk about bots, artificial intelligence, smart automation, and messenger marketing. We value our time and enjoy when technology makes our lives easier. And now your host, Botcopy.
Hello and welcome to the 5th episode. If you listen to the previous episode or you read my blog, then you know that it is not necessary to learn how to code in order to build chatbots. There are a few other skills, however, that you have to possess in order to succeed. And one of them is copywriting. Creating a conversation that engages your user and inspires them to take certain actions. For this episode, I invited the copywriters behind Swelly, one of the most successful chatbots. We will discuss whether your bot needs a personality, the differences between traditional and conversational copywriting, and many more. Unfortunately, we had some technical issues during the second part of the interview that we could not fix on the fly. Even after post-production, there are some parts where the quality is subpar. But the content is really good, and as usually, the transcription is available on our website. So you can also read this episode. Just visit chatbottutorial.com/botcopy. Without a further ado, please give a warm welcome to Rob Lubov and Dustin Dye. All right, welcome everyone. This is Balin from chatbotutorial.com, and today I'm going to interview two amazing persons who established a company called Botcopy. And they are talking about the challenges, the design aspects, and the copywriting aspects of creating a good experience for your chatbot. So please, guys, introduce yourself in a couple of sentences and welcome to the show.
Yeah, go for it, Rob.
I'm Rob Lubo. I'm a career copywriter and creative director and a co-founder of Botcopy. Also a founder of copyrevision.com.
Awesome. My name is Dustin Dye, and I am a partner in Expert Dojo, which is an accelerator for startup companies, which allowed me to get hands-on with a bunch of startups and small businesses, and introduced me to Swelly, who was a member of Expert Dojo for a while, where we started kind of getting hands-on and open up the door for the bot space, which is why I decided that writing bots was one of the funnest things that I've done within startup or within Expert Dojo. So gathered the best writers I know, like Rob and a few others, and designers as well, and started Botcopy.com.
Sounds amazing. So you have a great overview over the startups, and you see how you can help them with new insights of their copy in the bot space, right?
Yeah. So I've been with Expert Dojo since the beginning of the accelerator and we take about 100 different startup companies a quarter now. And in doing so, we go through every stages of development. Everybody comes in at a different stage. So it's fun, but it also allows me to really see interesting use cases for bots and how they can help either. In every bot, you can have a different use case and objective, where people like Swell, when they first came into Expert Dojo, I met Peter about a year and a half ago, and he came in, they just had an application, and they were kind of introducing us to the bot space and how they were thinking about switching their whole business over to bots. And it was really the first time I'd been introduced to the bot space, so I started doing a lot of research and seeing if that was a good idea, because they already had 30,000 users in the beginning of their app that had just been launched for about 3 or 4 months, and they won, I think it was like the Austrian Shark Tank or something like that in the beginning, and we're doing some fascinating things. And as an accelerator, it just seemed like an unusual move to jump ships into the bot space. Um, so as soon as I started doing some research and saw, it was kind of like just this new land of opportunity for startups to really take over existing platforms like Facebook, where there were, already billions of people using it. And then if you think that, okay, well, you have this app, and you can launch your app in the App Store, and you can compete like with most other different startup companies or businesses in the App Store, and end up paying, I think on average it's like $5 to $7 to acquire a user. But we all only use very few applications in our phones. I think on average it's like 6. And then there's also millions of other apps that we're competing with in the bot or in the App Store. So it's kind of it's a difficult game. It's a risky game. I mean, most startups are risky. I think the failure rate in at least California alone is in 90% failure rate. So, and then to jump on and try to compete with other apps and stuff like that, it's difficult. So when I saw that there's this open opportunity in the bot space where you can leverage these platforms where a ton of users already exist, then it's actually really cool. So we started working with Swell on not only their business, but how to design this conversation and build a personality of a bot, and how to really engage with their users and create this just fun, loving whale experience. And I'll let Rob kind of talk a little bit more about, building personalities, but just in the beginning, how interesting it was to see a startup that was growing slowly and paying a decent amount of money for users in the App Store that switched over their whole business to the bot space like Swelly did. And now they're growing at like 60, well, I think the rates are like 30 to 50,000 users a day with, a fraction of the cost per user. I think it's less than like 10 cents per user right now, which is really, really exciting to me. And one of the reasons I really wanted to focus on the bot space.
Amazing. So Rob, you have a unique website with copyrevision.com. It's also like in a bit interactive, at least more interactive than most of the websites. Can you talk about this business a bit?
In the past few years, content marketing and written content has exploded. We have a lot of businesses that want to be perceived as thought leaders, and a good way to do that is with blogging and publishing articles in high-profile places or long-form articles on Medium and so forth. It's hard to do when you've got visionary leaders, trying to convey complex ideas. They're not always the best writers. So the thinking was, having worked with lots of founders and visionaries in the past, is the best way that happened, we could create some great writing, was instead of someone like myself, who's a professional, schooled writer, interviewing them and trying to pull the information out and then constructing something afterwards, it was often more efficient to have them write a very bad rough draft. And so I'd ask them, write the worst, get your ideas on the page, but don't worry about the writing quality. I can intuit what you're going for, and then I can kind of spin it into shape. And that way we can get it out tomorrow instead of the month from now. And many times it was confirmed that works. So I thought, why not set up a company that does only that, and pull some of the best writers, the best journalists I can find. I had an editor from People magazine. I've had some, Harvard graduates and just fantastic journalists working behind the scenes with copy revision. And we've received, hundreds of rough drafts from different founders who want to convey their ideas. And we've been able to spin them into clear, concise, and upbeat messaging for all channels. And it's been a really fun ride. a great way to meet lots of startups and see what kind of solutions they're providing. And by the way, it's a fantastic lead-in to Botcopy, because after writing in so many different voices and wearing so many different hats, now we can really very gracefully step into the role of de Bergerac for any kind of bot, whether it's a little whale or a little alien, or or it's Alexa. We can kind of study the voice patterns and the tone and the vibe, as well as integrating that with serious sales goals and conversion rates, and really trying to create an elegant, logical, conversational design that will get results. It's the marriage of both worlds. So copy revision, great little business, great little service, and a great lead-in to something like Botcopy, which I think is going to really help as AI explodes in the next year or two.
Yeah, I think so as well, because of the changing. Like there's a text, there's an idea, but it has to be tweaked in a way that it's more engaging. So what was your first bot experience, Rob?
I was in the room, when Swelly was being discussed, and I was, Yala on Slack, one of the leading bots, was the first real, not the first bot experience, but the first one where we could really see a dramatic improvement on day one of deployment. So we're taking rough draft scripts, sometimes like in the same pattern as I was doing with copy revision, and looking at what they're trying to do, but changing the verbiage, the tone, the personality, and the style. And then, also with Dustin's strategic ability to grow startups and to understand, what the conversion points should be, we were able to remap the conversation, deploy it, and see on day one, looking at mixed panel data, the kinds of dramatic improvement we can hope for. Now, that's not to say that that the conversation wasn't, up to speed. It was a pretty strong conversation when we first got it, but we were able to build in some new things that got over some humps.
So in the digital world, there's the main places where people need copywriting are the websites and probably email marketing, right? And I see now the bot space emerging in that, as well as a marketing channel. What are some of the adjustments that you see, guys, that people probably don't make or should take consideration when they change their communication channel into the chat applications?
I think every medium that we do marketing on has a different message and a different way we deliver those messages. Just as our message on Twitter would be different than our message on Facebook. Now, while I think today we're in this era where there's all these different platforms, and I was touching on the fact that how do we leverage these social platforms like Facebook and deploy something like a bot? And to me, it isn't just like a one size fits all or stop. Like if you take a look at Swell, because it's a perfect example. So Swell isn't just on Facebook Messenger. Swell isn't just a bot. It's also an application. But they're like spreading their arms. And whether you call them marketing funnels or different messages or whatnot, like they're online, they're on Kick, they're on WhatsApp, they're on Facebook, they have an application in the App Store. They have a Facebook page, they have an Instagram account. Like these are all different marketing channels. And the way the bot delivers a message is similar to how it's almost a word of mouth. It's almost like a friend telling you that this product is worth buying into if you build the right personality. And that's why I think something like Botcopy is so fascinating. It's because how can we convey these messages to be like the trustworthy companion of a bot that also seamlessly markets your business? And if we can do that in a really perfect transition of gaining their credibility as a bot, and then trust as a bot, and then also have a fun experience where people want to keep coming back and using that. I think it's a really interesting marketing message, and can be real and extremely effective for businesses. So how you use that message and how you deploy, I mean, it totally depends on your brand, and who you are and what objectives your business is trying to do. So it could be an informational bot where you want to gain credibility as a thought leader in your space, which helps your brand. It can be a market research bot where you want to help brands like Swelly just to make decision between A and B. It can be a um, social media assistant like Yala and really help your day at work. And the marketing behind that is just more of, hey, I'm a free intern almost that's gonna scrape all your social accounts and say, here is when your audience is most active, please upload a post and I'll just blast it out for you. So there's all these different use cases that are emerging for the one marketing aspects of a bot, but also ways to create like fun, trustworthy companions and really take off. And I think as AI grows, I think we're in this early kind of embryo stage of artificial intelligence where most bots these today exist like need something like Botcopy, whether it's us or someone else, need thought and actual uh, writing their scripts of conversation and how they want to cater that, whether it's a marketing message or an objective or a service or even selling a product. Like it just needs to be thought out, and eventually I think there will be bots that the AI kind of learns what users are saying, how they're interacting, what retention, like what messages, if you can A and B test through the bot, are converting higher and will be deployed. But for now, it takes some um, thought in the script and building that personality and how you want to deploy that message. So that's where we found this kind of little niche where I think in the past 5 to 10 years, most app developers or businesses were so focused on the user experience being within touch, feel, and like small words that are more like call them call to actions. Where now it's all based within the bot space on conversation. Where yes, Facebook and all the other apps are launching new features almost every day that allows pictures and carousel images and ability to purchase products within the app and all that stuff, but it's still the linear conversation is just like you would with a friend, which to me is just amazing and fascinating.
For me, some of the things that are very exciting about the bots, that you can make these small stops and get feedback what people do, what action they do. It's one of the things that you cannot really do on websites, for example. And one of the copywriting concepts is that you should join the conversation of your reader.
Mhm.
It seems like bots enable this in a way because you can get these small little chunks of feedback. But what are your thoughts on that?
So I'll give you two perspectives. So in Expert Dojo, when I'm working with startups, one of the biggest things that we tend to focus on in the beginning is your customer profiles and the user experience within your product to match those customers. So if your customer is a 18-year-old woman, then their experience on a website or using your physical product or whatever is going to be different than an 80-year-old man. And that's pretty obvious. But the thing that's really interesting about bots is instead of making these like guesses or having surveys where 20 people fill them out, we're having one-on-one data and conversation with every interaction that we have. So the ability to learn from those specific points and data collections that we on the back end or the bot can read is developing one of the most elaborate customer experience based on actual customers interacting with your bot and learning from it. So I think from that standpoint, like just the testing aspect alone is developing and catering and allowing us to really touch and affect the people that are using our platform and give them the experience that they desire.
Rob, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, I mean, the original question, had something to do with, joining the conversation with your market and how chatbots allow us to do that even more than other channels. Is that this kind of the spirit of your question?
Yes.
Or is that what you're curious about? Well, from a writer standpoint, you're always trying to empathize with the reader, and there's a lot of guesswork. So, you've got a couple different models in your mind of who that avatar is, who you're talking to, and you write a headline, and then you write a first sentence. And by the time you get past the first paragraph, you have to assume that you've lost, a certain percentage of your reader. You do the best you can. You're trying to guess what they're feeling and thinking, and you try to anticipate that. And then you go to the second paragraph. You're hoping you still have your readers. You might not. By the time you get to the end, you assume maybe there's a certain amount that it resonated with and a certain amount that felt this is not meeting my needs. I'm going to move on to some other content. With conversational design, you're providing options. So I would say fewer readers will jump ship completely. You might, after the first paragraph of, say, a blog post that is now being expressed as a convo, you can give them choices to say, hey, I hear what you're saying, but I'm more curious about this aspect rather than that aspect. So you could say, now that I've said the first paragraph of my post, what do you want to know more about? You think this is, you could say something like, tell me more, or nah, I want to hear about this instead, or etc. So you're giving them conditional response options, and then they can decide where the conversation goes. It's just one of many examples where as a writer, that burden of like having ESP, like what does my reader want to know? Where do they want to take this conversation? I have less of that burden, and the control is more in the user's hands, which is a fantastic thing.
Yeah.
Amazing. One of the key things about chatbots that I hear that it has to have a character. Do you think it's always the case, or are there exceptions where there's like, okay, that the bot doesn't have a name, a personality, and just this whole charisma around it?
Well, Dustin, you had a fantastic insight about OK Google the other day. I think we see bots that have characters and names that are personable and warm and a little bit fun tend to do better than bots that are more generic.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. I think the experience that most people want to have is not a robot. They don't want to feel like they're talking to a wall that spits like the same thing back to them. They want to feel that this personality is kind of like learning and understands like the pain points that we have through previous conversations that we've had with it. So I give this rant. Anybody else hearing a little bit of an echo?
Yes. Now it's good.
It's gone. Maybe it's your camera.
Can you hear me?
Okay, yeah. Go on, please.
And I gave this rant in this blog post that we're launching later this week about OK Google. Now, the word OK Google, we kind of get really into it, but it's just, does Google really need brand recognition at this point for us to command their bot by saying Google? I just think it's a weird play. You take Apple, which has Siri, which is a personality, and then you take Amazon, which has Alexa. Then OK Google comes to market with OK Google, which is just kind of a mouthful to say in the first place. Like the word OK Google, it's just like I don't know, not fun to say. Like, try saying it 10 times fast. It just doesn't work. And at least from my standpoint, because I've had both the Galaxy phones and then also the Apple phone, and have used OK Google as a personal assistant before. While the functionalities are amazing, I mean, it's Google. It's a Google product. It links with all of Google's functionalities and does well. But just the negative connotations that I had with calling it like summoning the bot was just like, I don't like it. It's not a series. It's not fun. I don't feel like building a relationship here. I feel like it's just spitting information. So that's just my perspective. I think we obviously I think we see more bots that are bland and boring and dumb that have their own personal use cases, but as far as like building a relationship and really understanding the user's personality and charisma is key.
Right. One thing we try to focus on is personality and unique aspects of your bot. So for anyone who's looking to get into the bot space, whether you want more signups or more sales or just more to give more information in a creative way through a conversational UI, a lot of attention we believe should be paid to setting up a unique persona and a personality. And that's not so simple to do. There's, if you're not a creative type, if you're a coder or business person or a more traditional marketing person, you really have to get creative and have fun with it, because if your bot is unique, you have a chance to bond emotionally. One example that everyone likes to use is Poncho, the weather bot. You can come up with a million ways to have a weather bot. You can have a weather bot called Weatherbot. Who do you want your weather to get your weather from? Weatherbot or Poncho, a cat wearing a raincoat who talks about pizza or whatever, and kind of like a quirky little cat who's like your buddy. Most people at the end of the day want to have a little bit of fun. Life is hard and work can be a grind, and any opportunity to get a little bit of little lighthearted feeling in your life, people grab that. And when you create a unique personality and a persona, you're giving your bot that extra edge to beat out the 100 other bots in your category who feel more generic. So that unique personality is really a hugely important part of penetrating the market with your bot.
Probably also like it's a little mini storytelling in a way that the bot has a personality and it can be shared more to people. Like imagine people talk about, yeah, there's this weather bot and it tells you the weather, or oh, there's this little funny thing and yeah, it's called Pancho and can tell you the weather. So I think
also would like to mention Swelly, because that's a really interesting one. It could have easily just been the functionality and more focused on choose A or B, but the fact that it's branded as a whale allowed us to bring in all kinds of interesting nautical verbiage and puns and which keeps it different. And it's not that it's the goal is to be funny or entertaining. The goal is to be distinctive, so people remember your brand and hold it apart from all the other brands. So whether you use a whale or whether you use a cat or something like that, it's important to try to figure out who you are, what your brand represents, and what's the best way to express it. And we see that rather than having a person, an actual human being like me or something, or the name of the company like Google, there's this anything in between that, like little anthropomorphic creature, seems to perform better from what we've seen.
what would you suggest for people who wants to have a bot for a coaching business or like a marketer or entrepreneur?
I think before I think there's a lot of hype in the bot space right now, and for the most part, good hype. But it also is just having people jump to market before they really think about the use case of their business, which is never good. you shouldn't just jump to market without thinking like your objectives, what the bot's going to do, the functionality you have. So if it's a coaching aspect, then you got to think like, okay, who am I going to be coaching? And what do those people look like? So I can cater the conversation around that. Like if you're if it's a personal trainer, coach, where it's a workout program, then it's going to be different. And if it's a personal trainer for a certain age group and demographic, then that conversation is also going to be different. But if you want to learn to collect data about the user, then you also have to gain the trust sensibility. So we kind of have this thing where we start with different companies called the art of conversation, where similar to most customer journeys, we like to tie in a little bit of persuasion and sales tactics as well. So where a lot of customers journeys go along in a business where you start with awareness, they have knowledge, consideration, they purchase, they become a loyal customer, and then they create advocacy, which in the bot space, they're kind of calling, you mentioned it earlier, sharing. So we like to understand at least three objectives we're trying to get your bot to take. And then if it's something like a coach, we need to gain awareness and credibility on why the most fun coach to really nail what you need to be coaching. Gain trust, allow them to have options, and within options, you can have data points that you collect. So, the options is, what kind of exercise or what part of the body do you want to be focusing on within this workout program? Maybe they say, I need to lose some weight in whatever part of their body. Those are all like points of collection, but also giving the user options and feel like they have a little bit of say, which at the same time gets them more involved, and at a certain point says, well, I've already made it this far, I might as well see what this bot has to offer me. So these are all different things that you have to think about. How do we want to cater this conversation to achieve the objectives that we set forth as a certain bot? So a coaching bot, a business, a marketing funnel, a whatever the use case might be, and how do we get to a point where they want to keep using it and gain retention, and then also share it to others. If that makes sense.
No, it does. I think when you asked the question about coaching, what did you have in mind? Can you throw out a specific role?
Yeah, probably the fitness coach would be a good example. So, like an individual who has a business and wants to run his bot as a marketing funnel slash a channel to communicate with existing customers.
I agree with everything Dustin said. I guess that the only thing I would add is with a coach, your product is conversation. It's the conversation between you and your customer. So the bot's function, primarily would be to facilitate that end goal, which is to have the real conversation. So to give them a little taste of the kind of sensibility you bring to interaction, but then to quickly set up a consultation would be the goal.
Yeah.
And there are ways to do that to remove the kind of drag that would get in the way of setting up a consultation.
Yeah. And then so if it's not a bot that says you're going to do the workout with me, the bot now, and you want to use it as more of a marketing and sales funnel, then it's a different pitch. And I often tell people when they ask me, we'll say like real estate, because I have a little bit of background in real estate as well, and I understand like the sales model between real estate. So, I was working with someone on, look, I'm trying to create a better sales funnel for real estate using a bot. How do I do that? And I told them, okay, well, you want to make it easy for me to understand really what works. Record every sales call that you have. Take notes. And the ones that convert successfully, let's study. Let's see why they're converting, what tones of voice you used, how the users experienced that, what you said specifically that made them want to buy into your product, and let's automate that whole process. So let's turn what you said that was successful into a bot that learns your user. Maybe it was specific things that you said, and we'll take the real estate function is how many bedrooms would you like? Giving them like I was saying here before, instead of just telling them, pointing them in a direction, which a lot of bots today like have this linear funnel, like let's go down this path because this is the path that we have to go down. Well, if you give your users options like, okay, what bedrooms would you like to live in? We want to understand, and we're like, you're in our best interest. So where do you want your kids to go to school? Is school district something that you're interested in? And although these are different conversational trees, they're still wrapping us into our main objective. And once we find the most successful case points, and then we can implement different trees of conversation to still funnel us back into a sale, a retention, a happy customer, a brand awareness, incredible. So really studying what works in your business, like remotely, and being able to automate that whole process is another really good way to go about it.
We briefly mentioned some of the things that bots are good for testing, like you get some short feedback fairly quickly. There is this concept that's called the Wizard of Oz, when the user doesn't know that on the other side there are humans talking to them, and thinks that is talking to the software, to the bot. What are your thoughts about that? Did you try this out? Would you recommend it to people?
So is the question how to have your bot communicate as a robot, or for the people to know that they're communicating with this like robot, or
Is it so I've heard of the hybrid approach of having people dive in the middle of a conversation and take over for the bot without the user really knowing for sure if they're talking to a bot or a person. I think it's always great to let the user know exactly what's going on. I think we owe that to our users to say, hey, I'm jumping in here. You're not speaking to a bot anymore. This is Rob. I'm here to help you or answer any of your questions. I've read some case studies about that, and I think that's great if you have the power to do that, if you have enough time to do that. The whole point of the bot is that you don't have a million, yourself. You don't have a million selves to do, to talk to a million people. So you have to put the bot out there and let it do its job. But if you could clone yourself a million times, then we wouldn't need bots. I think we'd be even better.
What I really meant is I don't want to trick people and tell them that they're talking to a bot and not a human. Actually, most people prefer humans, I guess. But as a way of testing things out before you complete the whole automatization, just to have a feel and feedback about what people would take the conversation without you restricting them or bot trying to answer some of the questions.
Yeah, so I don't think that is my mic echoing. Is it okay?
I don't know. I still hear a little bit of echo, but yeah, just go on. I don't think we can fix it on the fly now.
Yeah, so I think that bot use cases aren't new. While chatbots might be still young, like for probably like 5-10 years, we've been calling corporate companies, and before we get to where we want to be, we're filtered through this robot. And while some of these conversations are annoying or kind of frustrating because we feel like, oh, press 2 if you want to speak in German, or English or Spanish, and then you get to the person that you need to get to. But I think at the same time, it's a little more efficient. That's why it exists. And so if we were talking to the 10 people that are actually running the corporate office in that given area, then the process would actually be a lot slower. So the conversations that we have with robots, I think we're all accepted and comfortable with it. I think we just want them always to be bigger, better, faster, stronger. And if we can add more of a personal human touch to it, then the experience just overall is like better for all users involved.
One of the keys of the success of Swelly is getting people back to use the application or the bot or whatever platform we're talking about. So what were the key elements that you could improve the engagement rate or the retention in a way?
So when I first started working with Fred, Swell's COO, we took a look at their original scripts, and they didn't really have much personality, and they have this cute little whale logo, and it's fun and playful, but their messages were like no tutorial or onboarding, with branded personality and content. So when people understood how to use it, they were just being told to upload picture A, upload picture B, and people make decisions. While if you create this like credibility and trust and persona by saying, "Hey, I'm Swelly, a wise whale from the deep blue sea, here to help you make decisions by collecting other people's opinions," you kind of have this like initial, "Oh, this is what you do. This is why I should trust you." Boom, boom, boom. And then you create this other brand of content like Whale Then or Holy Blowhole, and that's just fun. That people, it might be little small changes, but it adds this personality that helps cater the conversation.
One of the things I noticed that there is an option to skip voting. So there's not just A or B, but you can skip it. Was it always like that, or was it small adjustments to help people that they are stuck on certain pictures or topics?
Yeah, I'm not positive it was always like that. It's been like that for a while. They're trying to encourage people to upload better quality pictures. So by skipping, if you keep getting your picture skipped, then it won't reach as many people. So it encourages the users to upload better pictures, because if they have a platform and a bot that has beautiful pictures and a good experience for the users as well, that's helpful for not only them but everybody using it.
Okay. One of the key differences, if we look at bots as a marketing funnel, as a messenger marketing, for example, versus email, that you have to chunk your text. It doesn't work on messenger that can work on email. And as Robbie said, like the paragraph and then the next paragraph and the next paragraph. So in a way, in the bot, you have to put these hooks and little call to actions in there. What are the key concepts that help you create these hook points?
Uh,
Can someone just copy paste an email and just chunk it, or what are the adjustments, for example, from an original email?
Okay, so to take the content from an email and adapt it to a bot format, I would imagine a typical email has some short paragraphs, and at the end of each paragraph is some kind of call to action or link, correct? So if you're talking about that kind of email as opposed to a newsletter, I mean, there's all kinds of emails. You take those goals, conversion goals, you start with those, you just have it clear in your mind what you're trying to get your user to do, and then you walk them through it in a conversational way as opposed to a one-way communication, which is, email. But the hook points tend to stay in the same order or in the same place. The only difference is that the user can decide to skip around. So if there's like the fourth conversion in a newsletter, might be move up to be the second one in a bot conversation, depending on what the user chooses.
Okay, thank you. What general tips would you give to people starting to design their bots? Whether they should look in more like what are the things about the communication and this two-way communication that are bigger or like more emphasized in contrary to the traditional one-way communication? Are there at all these things that people this thing is way more important than on a website or on
Right.
other
There's so many
tools?
ways to use conversational interface. We were really fortunate to work with Yala and Swelly. And Yala, for instance, is an app that allows you to post social. And the choice to do that with a bot was a great idea on their part. And they know that the convo has to be creative, and they know full well, and they're capable, very bright people behind these apps, Swell and Yala, and that creating the conversational design is iterative. You have to try things and see how people respond. But sometimes people aren't doing an app; they're doing educational thing, like they want to do some content, they want to put a blog post out there, but they want to do it conversationally to keep people more engaged. So that's not really a tool that they're promoting ideas. You can use a bot to promote ideas. You can use a bot to express the use of a tool. You can use a bot to drive conversions to your business. In each of these cases, a bot is just another channel to try. Except in the case of the app, the bot becomes the app. That's the one situation where a business needs to think long and hard about whether they want to have a traditional UI or a bot be the guts and the nuts and bolts of their tool, of the solution they're providing.
I know that you prepare a voice bot where there's another element of the conversation that in a written text you cannot see that what tone of voice someone uses. In conversation via voice, it's more complex. What were you saying about someone thinking about creating a voice bot? What are the good ideas to collect?
Well, we are working with some, we've had clients who are working on Alexa. So regardless of the kind of messaging or tone or vibe they're trying to convey through their brand, it's going through Alexa's voice, and she's the ambassador, the person standing between this brand and the user. And that's fine, because you can convey personality and brand through the words you choose and not the tone of voice. But in terms of moving towards voice chat, I'll let Dustin field that, because he really has a huge interest in that. I don't know if Dustin, we were talking the other day about how it's going to all move to voice. It's possible that it could all move to voice very quickly.
Yeah.
And his question was about, what is your advice to people who are looking at maybe doing a voice interface instead of a text interface?
Yeah. So I think bots are successful because the frictionless communication and use cases. So the quicker the process is from idea or perception of something to purchase, the better a business typically is. So if we have 1 to 20 steps, your application from thinking about an idea to actually purchasing it or using the idea, it takes about 15 to 20 steps. And that's from thinking about it, going to the app store, downloading it, waiting for it to download, opening it, waiting for other people on there, navigating through it. Starting to get a little echo. Where it becomes difficult is
Getting worse. Oh yeah, now it's good.
there it goes. Where it becomes really thing is now, can we have these voice communications in enough areas where that frictionless conversation is enhanced? Where now we're just talking to someone. We don't even have to touch our phones. So if eventually where, you have Alexa where they're coming out with the echoes that you can put all over your house, but if that conversation becomes earbuds or comes to anything where we're just walking and we can summon this like personal assistant robots with our voice, and it is going to be an extremely powerful tool. But the use cases aren't quite there yet. While Alexa has deployed $100 million fund for developers to start enhancing those features, it isn't quite there yet, which is why chatbots are doing so well. Because from applications to bot, it's 3 to 5 steps compared to 20. So they're performing higher. Where voice, it could just be 1 or 2 steps. Fascinating to me, and where I see huge push and movement and a lot of potential for the future.
Yeah, I also really fascinated about the voice interfaces because so many times people are just on the road or doing something and they cannot actively take the time to type. So it's a good complement to the situations where people cannot really talk because they are in a noisy environment or I don't know, just not applicable.
Yeah, and we'll see who rises above the kind of grain. I think there'll be competition, but right now you have Siri, Alexa, and OK Google. Samsung is coming out. They just launched theirs in China called
Viv.
Viv.
I think that, isn't that?
No, Viv is the software they acquired from the Siri founders, which is fascinating. That's a whole podcast topic on its own. How the founders of Siri sold to Apple, then 10 years later built an even bigger, better, and then sold it to themselves. But I think they changed the name and released it into China to test the market. So we'll see how Samsung comes to the game in that aspect. But yeah, all of these powerhouses are creating platforms similar to how Facebook does with their developer conferences. Encourages like people to develop new technology and features on Facebook and kind of acquire or things stick and the users are using. So if the voice can be in enough places and it becomes acceptable to wear an earbud all around, then voice is going to take off and be a really cool feature. If not, like and until then, texting and having instant access to the bot or persona or personal assistant or marketing guru or information specialist, sports star, sports news, whatever the bot use case is still a better experience right now because of the 1 to 5 steps that it takes to get there compared to an app where you would have to have download, open, etc.
It is true that we have 2 voices that we know right now in AI. We have Siri and Alexa. Those are and you can choose, which person through Siri to talk to. It can be a woman with an English accent. It can be a man, right? What happens when we have thousands of voices out there, each representing a different brand, style, and personality? Dustin, do you see a world where we have just hundreds, thousands of funny different kinds of voices expressing all the different brands instead of having them flow through 5 or 10 main voices? Because that could be crazy. I mean, right now you look at the icons in the chat, in the little avatars of the chat bots we use, people like Pancho. Like, what is Pancho's voice? What is Pancho actually going to sound like if he starts talking? And are we going to have thousands of different voices?
Yeah, and I mean it'll be an interesting transition. A lot of time to for a brand to personally develop like its own voice. I think you'll start with having options of how you want Siri or Alexa to be heard, similar to how we have options in our GPS. Where if you want a English woman's voice or an Australian woman or an Australian man voice, like we have the power to do so, but the code and tones and recordings to get those voice to actually be okay for people to understand takes a lot of time and effort that a business might not have the resources or want to spend time focusing on. So I think before brands specifically create their own tones and voices, there will be kind of a voice sheet, similar to how fonts are on, Word, where we'll be able to scroll down and see the different like types of tones and characters that are already pre-uploaded by people who have time and money to spend because that's their preference.
Interesting. Wow, that is interesting because we have such variation in the actual look of the characters we're dealing with. Like you've got Swelly, you've got Yellow, you've got Poncho, but then you're saying the voices would be more a set thing, like a font set, versus the distinctiveness of the characters.
Yeah.
See, I think we spend so much time sitting looking at our iPhones that we read a lot more than we need to listen to audio, like being on the go. And as a writer, I know that when you don't hear the writer's voice, you actually like the writer more because you interpret their voice in your head as something like super identifiable.
Mm-hmm.
Like think of your favorite writer before you ever heard them talk. You had this idealized version of the voice they were using, and you loved it. And then you hear them talk, and it sort of ruins the reading experience because now you're thinking of their voice, and it's not what you imagined in your head. So when you're writing copy or bot copy, you have this opportunity to be more universally likable if you don't have a voice timbre. So you get to be whatever the person reading wants you to be. So I do like that aspect of writing, and because I think we're sitting around most of the time stationary looking at our phones rather than driving. And I think even with with automated driving where you don't even have to look out the window anymore, you can kind of look down at your phone in years to come. We might stick with writing text more than we think we will. Similar to how video chat, like we're doing now, really hasn't taken off the way I thought it would, when I heard about it 10, 20 years ago, because a lot of times people just like texting on their phone, something more satisfying about it. Like I don't FaceTime with my mom as much as you think I would. She lives in Chicago and I'm in LA. We text a lot more. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes.
Also comes down to the nature of the conversation. So that's one of the selling points of bots, actually, that it's asynchronous. So the bot can always answer in a timely manner, but you can just take a look at your phone in 2 hours later and keep on the conversation where it
exactly. Yeah.
So I think that's also part of this reason. And coming to the voice idea, I think when the machine learning and artificial intelligence gets to the level that you could just upload all the, voice samples of someone. For example, let's be a person bot, Elon Musk, and you can just upload all his speeches, and then it retrieves the data and the voice patterns and all the style, and then creates its voice. Then it can be like spread all the variation of bots voices.
That's true. They just came out last week with that. Go ahead.
All right.
I read something about that. Let's see. Try to find it.
Okay, cool. One last question would be, what would you recommend for people to design their bots? Are there any tools? I know about some people use Draw.io or Bot Society or Chatmapper or whatever. What do you use or what would you suggest?
In the beginning, a whiteboard. Like really sketch it out. Like before you spend time in thought into designing on a web interface or anything, even if you're like punching in codes, like sit down and like map out these conversations. Like something as simple as a whiteboard, or I've been using realtimeboard.com, because it allows us to, when we're in different environments and workplaces, to have the same whiteboard interface and just kind of brainstorm to a point where we really understand where our objectives are in the bot, and then take it from there. But after that, I like Rive. It's nice. There's I think Octane is okay. I'm not like a huge fan of it, to be honest. Though it's fine. I'm pretty sure Facebook's starting to develop employ its own use cases actually for writing them. There's also another really easy one. God, this name off the top of my head. But there's several current tools out there to start writing the conversation. But my suggestion is just like really think about your personality, brand, where you want the conversation to go, and how many different conversational trees, and where you want these trees to kind of lead to, before you really get started.
Okay, amazing. Thank you.
Did you mention ManyChat? I didn't hear. ManyChat.com, did you mention that?
ManyChat? Yeah, ManyChat's a good one as well.
Yeah. So thank you. Coming to the end of the interview, do you have anything else to add as a quick tip for designing the copy of a chatbot?
Yeah, give us a call. We're happy to talk.
The quick tip is think about how you're different from every other chatbot and every other brand, and then the whole thing after that is figuring out how to infuse that difference into your words and sentences so that people know that you're distinct from everybody else. And there are lots of creative ways to do that, and that's why you might need help from a writing agency.
Okay, amazing. Thank you. As a last question, who would you nominate as a guest for the podcast, and why? Some people from the bot space. You see some interesting bot cases.
For your podcast?
Yes.
So I nominate Anton, who's building a bot right now called Zebra Instant, who, in my perspective, has one of the strongest use cases for bots that I've seen. And he works out at Expert Dojo as well all the time. So I'm happy to make that connection. But he's basically allowing you to merchandise any picture that you take on your phone.
Sounds amazing.
It's like Polaroid 10.0.
Okay. Thank you, guys. Everyone who wants to contact you, what's the best way?
You can just get a hold of me either at dust@botcopy.com if you're interested in learning more about what we can do and help your bot as far as the writing and design and creative content. And if you're thinking about starting a business and stuff like that, you can contact me at dustin@expertdojo.com.
Okay, thank you very much. And I think, Rob, you can also add copyrevision.com for a clearer copy.
I would, yeah, for sure. And I would nominate, the people at Yala, Gary or Yoav. It's a fantastic team, and they're trailblazing. These are the bots that have risen to the top very quickly on platforms like Slack and Facebook. The people behind those bots are the ones who are in the trenches making things happen. And again, we've been fortunate to work with them and learn from their, trial and error and try to help as best we can. So I would for sure try to get someone who's actually building a trailblazing bot on the podcast, and they can, illuminate so many people with what they know, probably more than we can. And you can also reach me if you have any questions about how to make your bot convos more creative at rob@botcopy.com, and we can start the convo.
Amazing. Thank you very much, and have a nice day.
Yeah. Ciao.
You too.
Bye.
Thanks so much.
I hope you liked the interview. Once again, my apologies for the bad sound quality. You can find the links and full transcript in this episode at chatbottutorial.com/botcopy. I would love to continue this discussion, so Please comment under the post or leave us a review on iTunes to support the podcast. Also, you can ask questions for the upcoming episodes that me or my guests can answer. Just hop over to chatbottutorial.com/ask. If you're interested in learning more about messenger marketing, I regularly host a free live training online. You can sign up via chatbottutorial.com/webinar. Thank you for your attention and talk to you in the next episode.
Thanks for joining the Chatbot Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to rate us on iTunes and share it with others.